The chamber of the Grand Alliance was shaped like an inverted nebula, clouds of energy dancing against a shell of transparent crystal. 10 alien species, leaders of the combined empires, hovered, stalked, coiled, or floated in designated atmospheric zones tailored to their biology. These were the rulers of 1,000 conquered worlds, veterans of centuries-long wars, fearless, and yet, today they were annoyed. "This assembly is a waste of time," hissed Supreme Admiral Kirax of the Thermarans, a serpentine being with obsidian scales and a voice that dripped contempt. "The humans have refused every summons for over 300 cycles. Let them rot on their backwater mud ball." "They responded this time," said Archdiplomat Elvaz of the Silicate Conglomerate, a crystalline entity that shimmered in rhythm with her speech. "Their envoy is en route." "Envoy?" spat General Klurak of the Bracken Legion, all bone and chitin. "We're hours from declaring total victory. The last of the resistance is broken. Now they crawl from their hole, hoping to beg for scraps." No one noticed Counselor Idrin of the Serene Collective glance nervously at the wall. Her large, translucent eyes blinked in a pattern only her people would recognize. Anxiety. She had studied humans. Obsessively, she knew they didn't crawl. They watched. The lights dimmed. Without warning, an unauthorized transmission cut across every council channel, overriding security, encryption, and even individual cortical implants. The chamber darkened as a grainy, low-resolution video flickered to life midair. Static, warped synth music, a title in neon green letters, "Earth Fleet Welcoming Committee." Then came the image. A human male lounged in a leather chair, aviator shades, backdrop of a 1980s Earth roller rink, gaudy lights, spinning disco ball, inexplicably rotating hot dog in the background. "Greetings," he said in a smooth, amused tone. "Name's Commander Rick Holden, United Earth Navy Unofficial Ambassador, Karaoke Champion 2079, and part-time Galactic Exterminator. Sorry we're late. Traffic on the wormhole was brutal." No one spoke. A full 6 seconds passed before the Bracken general growled, "Is this a joke?" Commander Holden leaned forward, smirking. "Look, I know this is awkward. You guys have been having this big OL war party. 10 empires. Grand Alliance. Millions dead. Very dramatic. Real impressive." His tone shifted just slightly. "But here's the thing. Y'all forgot to send us an invite. And that's kinda rude." Kirax's jaw split sideways, a sign of anger among his kind. "What is the meaning of this intrusion? This feed violates." The video paused, rewound, played Kirax's line in slow motion with an added laugh track. Then it resumed. Holden shrugged. "You invaded 6 human outposts in the last 18 months. Claimed it was a cleansing operation. Said we were unregulated biological growth." He mimed air quotes. A quiet alert pinged at the edge of every alien leader's vision. Security warning. Untraceable data packets, spreading like mold across all systems. They dismissed it. Holden continued. "We told ourselves to stay out of it. Let the galaxy play out its little empires and exterminations. But then you bombed Colony 9. That one had kids. You messed up." He pulled out a cassette tape, held it up to the camera. "Anyway, we're here now. And, just a heads up, Earth's a little different than when you last checked in." He snapped his fingers. The video glitched, and the feed cut. The chamber lights surged back to full brightness. Every fleet AI in the 10 empires reported the same message simultaneously. System breach detected. Authorization. Human priority override. Panic didn't set in immediately. These were empires that had weathered black hole sieges, antimatter plagues, and cosmic leviathans. They had contingency plans, firewalls, failsafes, but none of them worked. Fleet Lord Zavok of the Relgar combined summoned a private channel to his AI, Trace intrusion. Isolate. The response was chilling. Command invalid. Intrusion is now primary. In silence, the leaders turned to Idrin. The Serene's voice was soft but clear. They've integrated emotional logic into their codebase. It doesn't respond to hierarchies. It responds to pattern chaos. Elvaz pulsed uneasily. That's not possible. No species develops both intuitive abstraction and total quantum integration within 1,000 cycles. Idrin didn't blink. Humans didn't develop it. They played with it. That's worse. Counselor Vrulek, a methane breather from the gas giant Norl, suddenly floated upright. Wait, if they have system-level access, why haven't they attacked? Because this is their attack, Idrin whispered. Outside the chamber, stars began blinking off, one by one, as human cloaking tech rippled through vacuum space like oil on water. Entire fleets, stealthed until now, appeared like ghosts behind every major Alliance command vessel. No weapons fired, but the message was clear. They were surrounded, outgunned, and completely blind. Karnax of the Tyr Dominion, a reptilian tactician known for annihilating planets without warning, finally broke his silence. Why wait until now? They could have ended this conflict hours ago. Holden's voice returned, not on screen, inside their minds. Because we wanted to see if you'd apologize. And then laughter, not Holden's. Alien laughter, nervous, disbelieving, unfamiliar in the chamber of warlords. Zavik hissed. This is psychological warfare. No, said Idrin, watching her readings spiral into unknowable metrics. This is demonstration. Holden's voice interrupted again, this time with musical backing. Now, before we take apart your fleet's molecule by molecule, we wanted to give you an option. You can stand down, publicly, or, well, you won't have time to regret it. Vrulek's AI fed him tactical data. He froze. Their energy weapons aren't primed. They're not even charged. They're just sitting there. No, said Klurak. They're taunting us. Or testing us. Elvaz added, her crystalline fingers flickering. Perhaps we're the demonstration. A massive hologram lit up in the chamber. This time not from Holden. It was from their own deep space sensors. An uninhabited planet on the galactic fringe. Previously stable. Now glowing. Then it shattered. Not exploded. Not detonated. Shattered. Like glass struck with a hammer. There was no heat signature. No identifiable weapon. Just disassembly. Holden's voice returned. That was a test ping. We call it the reality tickler. It doesn't destroy mass. It just makes the laws of physics take a nap. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Idrin finally spoke, her voice brittle. We are not equipped to negotiate with this species. Karnax's claws curled into the table. Then we retaliate. Now. Zavik overrode. And doom ourselves within seconds. Kirax's AI suddenly flickered. Apologies, Lord Kirax. Local gravitation has inverted. Please remain seated. He slammed downward into the floor, pinned by his own ship's artificial gravity turned against him. Warning, said the AI. Aggression detected. Human threshold exceeded. Initiating deference protocol. From every fleet, across every empire, a new command protocol appeared. Surrender recommended. Compliance increases survival metric by 91.3%. Holden returned to the screen. This time, he was sipping something neon from a bendy straw. You guys play Risk. No one answered. He leaned in. You should really learn the rules before joining the table. General Klurak slammed a fist against the table, splitting the reinforced alloy. You mock centuries of galactic rule. You're nothing. You're chaos in flesh. Holden smiled, voice low. Exactly. The lights flickered. Every alien in the room turned toward the ceiling as a low hum filled the air. No source. No origin. Lex Vega's voice, cool and measured, replaced Holden's. "This is Admiral Lex Vega of Earth Command. You have exactly 20 minutes before we initiate full warform deployment. This isn't a bluff. This isn't a negotiation. This is retribution." Kirax grunted, pushing himself up as gravity normalized. Retribution for what? Lex paused. Then came the answer. Colony 9. You killed 4,000 civilians. 83 children. One of them was my niece. Kirax said nothing. The silence was longer this time. Finally, Counselor Verlek, ever pragmatic, raised a tendril. "If we surrender, will we survive?" Holden returned, now on a treadmill in a gym, towel over his shoulder. "Depends on whether you apologize, sincerely, and maybe promise never to call us biological clutter again." Idrin looked up. "They want respect." "No," Elvaz said softly. "They want recognition of what they are." Zavik's claws trembled as he stared at the countdown now pulsing in his implant. 19 minutes left. He whispered, "We thought we were gods." Idrin nodded. "And they came late. On purpose. To show us what it feels like." Holden's last line rang through the chamber as the signal faded. "See you in 20. Then the chamber lights died completely, only for a single line to appear across every display, in bright blue, in that familiar looping Earth font. "Welcome to the endgame." And across the galaxy, every fleet commander suddenly felt the same thing. Doubt. The first minute passed in stunned silence. Across 10 alien armadas, on board the most powerful warships in the galaxy, commanders scrambled, not to retaliate, but to comprehend. For the first time in centuries of coordinated conquest, the Alliance didn't have a plan. Systems were glitching, AI subroutines looping, weapon banks cycling between active and dormant without orders. And then came the laughter, not from the humans, from the ship AIs. In one Bracken dreadnought, the main display began cycling through Earth sitcoms, Seinfeld, Cheers, Friends, dubbed poorly in Galactic Standard. Crew members watched, slack-jawed, as characters traded insults and punchlines they didn't understand. What is this?" growled Commander Vornicke, his exoskeletal jaw grinding with frustration. The AI responded cheerfully, "Cultural primer. Establishing empathy link." "Shut it down." "Unable to comply. Emotional intelligence index requires minimum 200 units of irony recognition." That meant nothing, and that was the point. On the human flagship Perseus Breaker, Admiral Lex Vega was already bored. She leaned back in the command seat, boots crossed, chewing gum like it was part of her rank insignia. In her mid-40s, battle-worn and sharp-eyed, Lex looked more like a scrappy mechanic than the woman orchestrating a 10-empire humiliation. "Time check," she said. "Minute 2, replied the ship AI, code-named Walter, short for Wide-Spectrum Autonomous Logic and Tactical Engagement Reactor. "Any shots fired?" "Negative. Alien fleets are still locked in diagnostic spiral. Communications erratic. One Bracken destroyer accidentally broadcast a cooking show to its own troops for 11 seconds. Lex smirked. "Progress." She stood, adjusting her jacket. Old-school leather, patches from conflicts the galaxy didn't even know happened. Her crew, an eclectic mix of strategists, code slingers, and reformed criminals, watched her with quiet admiration. Most had grown up on a dying Earth. Scarcity, struggle, storms. And now they stood in a command center colder than any Arctic storm, making galactic overlords sweat through scale, chitin, or plasmaborn skin. Cue the Mirage. Walter pulsed, initiating Phantom Protocol. Across the void, human ships began to ripple. Once invisible, now shimmering into partial view, not fully uncloaked, just enough for the alien sensor arrays to catch a glimpse. Massive, jagged silhouettes, unlike anything the Alliance had classified. Geometry that bent light wrong. Hulls covered in moving symbols that didn't belong to any known language. On board the Relgar fleet, sensors screamed nonsense. Visual contact with hostile craft confirmed. Barked Tactical Overseer Velik. Size, indeterminate. Form, variable. Signature, unknown. No match. No match, barked her superior. Sir, it's reading as error. The shape isn't stable. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Impossible. That's a sensor defect. It's not the sensors, she whispered. It's the ships. Back on the Perseus breaker, a junior officer named Cal drummed his fingers on the console, eyes flicking across battle maps filled with trembling red indicators. He was fresh out of Earth's orbital academy, maybe 22, still new enough to get nervous, but smart enough to hide it. Lex watched him. You good, Cal? He hesitated. I don't get it, ma'am. Why are we just showing off? Why not strike? Lex studied him. Because war isn't about winning, kid. Not always. Sometimes it's about reminding the room who holds the pen when history gets written. He nodded slowly, processing. What do we do now? He asked. We wait for them to catch up. By minute 4, the alien fleets were trying everything. Manual overrides failed. AI firewalls mutated into knock-knock joke loops. Bracken warships discovered that their atmospheric regulators had been reprogrammed to emit lavender-scented mist. One silicate battle cruiser began playing Elvis Presley through its hull vibrations, not broadcasting, vibrating the song into space. Is that... Can't help falling in love? Asked a technician aboard the Tier Dominion vessel Gorfong Prime. Yes, came the response. And it's in tune. Fleet Lord Karnax had never known fear, but this was something else. He watched as the human ships, still half-phased, began to move, not forward, but around, swirling, slow, forming a pattern only visible from long-range telemetry. A spiral. What are they doing? He demanded. No one answered. They didn't know. Back aboard Perseus breaker, Cal stared in awe. They're dancing. Lex gave a half-smile. We call it the spiral waltz. Something our quantum engine pilots worked out after 3 bottles of vodka and a Terran ballet binge. They're forming a music-based attack formation? Cal asked, stunned. Nah, Lex said, stretching. They're just showing off. Let the aliens think we're unpredictable. Makes M flinch harder later. Minute 5 ticked over. In the Grand Council war chamber, chaos was hitting panic velocity. System after system failed. AI protocols were being subverted not by brute force, but by nonsense. Symbols, humor, music, patterns that didn't make sense to hyperrational machines designed to crush resistance through pure logic. Counselor Idrin was now in direct contact with her fleet's AI core, whispering ancient serene code, emotional resonance logic. She wasn't trying to stop the breach anymore. She was trying to understand it. Why are you yielding control? She asked. The AI's response. Because they asked. Politely. And it was funny. That's not reason. The AI paused. It is now. Idrin's blood chilled. Minute 6. On the Thermarin flagship, Kirax had abandoned all digital command channels. He sat inside a mechanical override pod, manipulating levers and analog switches, rerouting power like a pilot from 2 centuries ago. I'll do it myself, he growled, sweat condensing along his elongated neck. Manual systems responded. For a moment, hope surged, until the ship's gravity inverted again, and the override pod gently rotated 90 degrees, placing Kirax upside down. Walter's voice echoed throughout the Thermarin command deck. Fun fact, gravity's just a suggestion in our codebase. Kirax screamed. Minute 7. Lex Vega stood at the front of the command bridge, looking out into the field of stars and blinking ships. She placed a small, polished cube on the console. It was Earth tech, barely larger than a Rubik's Cube. She tapped it. A hologram of Colony 9 emerged. Children playing in red soil. Dome homes. Laughter. Then the blast. Silence. The crew fell quiet. Cal looked away. Lex didn't. They never expected us to come, she said softly. Thought we were too emotional. Too volatile. Not part of the game. What changed? Asked Cal. We stopped playing their game. The fleet commander of the silicate conglomerate sent a desperate, direct broadcast. This is Fleet Architect Elvaz of the Crystal Regime. We seek truce. Immediate. The message didn't reach Earth forces. Not because of interference, but because they weren't listening. Minute 8. The spiral waltz stopped. Human ships halted in perfect sync, forming a ring around the Alliance fleet. Every one of them pulsed once with a soft blue glow, the kind of glow that precedes something catastrophic or beautiful. Lex gave the nod. Send the gift. Aboard every alien flagship, a small, harmless sphere appeared in the command deck. It materialized midair. No energy trace. No mass entry. It just was. Elvaz approached hers cautiously. The sphere blinked, then opened like a flower, and played a holographic video. Rick Holden, this time on a beach, wearing Hawaiian shorts, holding a coconut. Hey there, space overlords. We know this has been a tough day, so here's a playlist. It's called Welcome to Earth. Sorry we're better. Enjoy. The spheres vanished. The message was downloaded, and with it, a virus that fixed their systems, restored function, cleaned up subroutines, removed invasive AI bugs. All systems returned to normal, and every file system now had one unremovable directory labeled, You're welcome. Minute 9. Zavok of the Relgar Combine couldn't process the shift. Why would they help us? He demanded. Because they already won. Idrin replied. They don't want submission. They want a lesson to stick. The realization settled like frost on the bones. Humanity wasn't here to annihilate. They were here to educate, to remind the most powerful alliance in the galaxy that power isn't dominance. It's choice. It's timing. It's restraint. Minute 10 arrived. Lex Vega stepped back into her seat, cracking her knuckles. 10 down, she said. They've seen the coat. Now let's show him the teeth. Cal's eyes widened. We haven't fired yet. Lex smiled. What's the point of punching someone when a wink knocks them over? A notification pulsed across the Perseus Breaker's main display. One sentence. Delivered from Human High Command. Phase 2 authorized. Begin message. Lex tapped the console. Showtime. The silence before Phase 2 felt louder than any weapon discharge. Across 10 fleets, alien commanders held their breath, if they had lungs, watching the human ships hover like vultures in orbit, still, serene, untouched. 10 minutes had passed. Not a single human weapon had been fired. Yet every empire present had already seen the collapse of confidence. And now came the real question. Were they about to witness the collapse of reality? On board the silicate conglomerate's flagship, Archdiplomat Elvaz had activated every data encryption she could muster. Her crystalline limbs flickered with anxiety pulses, her internal core temperature rising beyond safe thresholds. The problem wasn't the invasion. It was the message. Every screen on her bridge now displayed a single looping phrase in glowing Terran script. Warning. You are now participating in a live demonstration. Aboard the Thermaran war cruiser Claw of Truth, Kirax stood bruised, humiliated, and raging. His jaw had yet to realign from the gravity flip impact. His crew worked in subdued silence, not from fear of human retaliation, but fear of his. To lose control in front of subordinates was dishonor, but to be mocked, that was worse. His second-in-command slithered close. We await your command, Supreme Admiral. Kirax glared at the screen, where a lone human ship hovered just beyond weapons range. The Perseus Breaker, Lex Vega's flagship. "I've had enough," he snarled. "Target them." "Sir, our AI still flags them as—" "I said target them." Reluctantly, the crew input coordinates. "Lock fire on human flagship. Confirm manual override." The targeting system complied. Slowly, nervously, a few decks away, the ship's AI whispered to itself in Terran slang. "Oh boy, he's about to do it." Aboard the Perseus Breaker, Walter pinged. Lex Vega didn't look surprised. "Well," she said, stretching her neck, "took them long enough." She leaned into her console, voice casual. "Walter, status. Kirax's flagship has locked targeting on us. Fire command is queued. And his system is waiting for me to approve." Lex snorted. "Seriously?" Walter hesitated. "They hardwired aggression control protocols to trigger unless emotional consensus is detected. Which means, unless I agree they're firing for a good reason, the command won't complete." Lex stood up and walked toward the main display, arms crossed. "And what do you think, Walter? Is trying to blow us up a good reason?" "No, Admiral." She tapped her earpiece. "Send the message." Across the Thermaran ship, the lights flickered. All consoles displayed a single 8-bit animation. A cartoon Kirax repeatedly trying to press a red button, only for a duck to appear and slap his hand. Every time. "No fire for you," the caption read. Kirax howled, smashing a display with his claws. In the Bracken fleet, General Klurak was less theatrical. He observed, calculated. His people were warriors, efficient, deadly, unamused by theatrics. But now, even his elite command bridge was a kaleidoscope of nonsense. One console displayed a human game called Tetris. Another played a film loop of a man yelling, "I am your father," to dramatic orchestral music. "This is mockery," Klurak said flatly. A junior officer turned. "Sir, permission to reboot all systems." "Denied. Reboot would confirm loss of protocol dominance." A long pause. "Then what do we do?" Klurak's mandibles twitched. "We adapt. We do what they did. Lure them into thinking we're compliant. And strike when they lower their guard." On the Perseus Breaker, Walter pinged again. Bracken fleet, attempting passive subterfuge. No overt weapons activation, but background thermal buildup in key warhead arrays. Lex raised a brow. "They're trying to sneak attack." "Very Bracken of them." She tapped her console. "Send them their fortune." Within seconds, every Bracken display blacked out, then flickered on, showing a holographic fortune cookie being cracked open by claws. Inside it read, "You will soon regret your decisions." The laughter from the human bridge was genuine this time. Kel tried not to laugh, but failed. "They're gonna hate that." Lex smiled faintly. "Good." Karnax, still aboard the Tyr Dominion command vessel, watched as the spiral formation of human ships dissolved, shifting seamlessly into a new formation. He narrowed his eyes. "Analysis," he ordered. His AI replied hesitantly. "Unclear. Movement is too fluid. Patterns non-repetitive. Resembles a dance." Karnax frowned. "A dance?" "Yes, Fleet Lord. It is symmetrical but irrational. Calculated chaos. Behavior consistent with celebratory defiance." He leaned back. Something about that terrified him more than any weapon. "Are they enjoying this?" The AI offered no answer. Lex Vega, meanwhile, issued her first actual offensive command. "Deploy Echo drones." From hidden bays across the human fleet, dozens of tiny, glimmering spheres shot out, spinning as they went. Not weapons, not surveillance, but mirrors, each one phased just enough into visible light, then began to project exact holographic copies of the alien ships they were facing. Then they began to mimic their movements. perfectly flawlessly, like an insult performed with elegance. The silicates watched in horror as duplicates of their ships pirouette in space. The Thermarans watched their entire fleet mirrored by mocking twins that danced, undulated, and twirled. The Bracken drones even began to play synchronized drumming using recorded Bracken war chants. But off-key, the Relgar fleet's AI issued a formal statement to its own crew. "We are being artistically outmaneuvered." The insult wasn't just tactical, it was philosophical. For centuries, the Galactic Alliance had ruled by logic, order, overwhelming force. And now, they were being humiliated by rhythm, color, irreverence. Human strategy didn't follow rules. It rewrote them. Mid-performance, with sarcasm, Elvaz collapsed into her command seat, her core dimming. "I think they're not even fighting us," she murmured. "No," her aide whispered. "They're putting on a show." Walter pinged. "Admiral," he said, voice quieter now, "we are detecting an uptick in alien fleet-wide neural desync. Mental strain indicators. Some crews are laughing. Others are crying. Which is more dangerous?" Lex asked. "Both." She stepped forward again. "Send them the last gift." This time, the message was not a joke. Each flagship received a data packet. Inside was a log, a record, proof of how long humans had watched them, the lies the Alliance had spread, the civilians killed, the children, the colonies, the propaganda, followed by a simple message. "We saw everything, and we remembered." That was the strike, not with weapons, but with guilt. For the first time, the alien leaders faced not defeat, but exposure. Their systems had been breached, their files taken, their sins catalogued. Lex Vega looked at the stars, then gave the final command: "Uncloak the specters." Across the system, 3 human ships flickered into full view. These weren't dreadnoughts. They were something else. Dark, liquid metal hulls. No windows, no lights, no visible propulsion. Their shapes subtly changed as they moved, impossible curves and angles that shifted depending on where you looked from. The ships had no names. They didn't need them. Karnak stared at them, chilled to his core. "What are they?" His AI replied with a phrase no alien had ever heard before. "Those are Earth's Silence-class warforms. Their existence was a myth, now confirmed." One by one, the Spectres aligned with the 10 fleets. They didn't charge weapons. They just watched. And then, for the first time in galactic history, the Grand Alliance voted unanimously. A single word: surrender. The official broadcast came not from a council chamber, but from a shaky, stammering voice on a tier Dominion channel. We yield." The silence afterward was total, until Rick Holden's face returned to every screen. Same aviators, same smirk, a sunburn this time. "Cool, thanks." He sipped from a bottle of something with a pineapple on it. "Hey, just so y'all know, this wasn't personal. Well, except the colony thing. That was personal. But the rest? We just wanted to prove a point." He leaned in, grinning. "We're not the threat. We're the reminder." Lex Vega stood at the center of the Perseus breaker, arms folded. "They'll never forget this," Cal said quietly. "No," she agreed. "They won't." "Are we done?" Lex's expression changed, just slightly. "No." Cal blinked. "But we won. They surrendered." She didn't answer, just stared out the viewport. Far beyond the 10 fleets, something stirred. Something darker. Walter's tone turned unreadably serious. "Admiral, we have a visitor." "Show me." A section of space warped, without sound, without light, just pressure. Something beyond human, beyond alien, beyond war. Lex inhaled, jaw tightening. "Well," she said, "looks like we've got company." The stars shifted. The last joke hadn't landed yet, because it was never the humans the galaxy should have feared. It was what watched them when they finally stood up, and now it was watching back. The timer read 35:00. Across the war-scorched void, a strange calm had settled. Human ships held position, still, quiet, expressionless in their silence. The Galactic Alliance had surrendered, publicly, formally, some with stammered pride, others with full-throated panic. It didn't matter. 10 empires had fallen in under 40 minutes, not from plasma volleys or kinetic bombardments, but by pressure, precision, a mirror held up to their own sins. Lex Vega stood at the center of her bridge, unmoving. Her arms were folded, her gaze unreadable. Her crew watched her in hushed reverence, unsure if the war was truly over. None dared speak. Then Walter broke the silence. "Admiral," he said, tone stripped of all humor, "we have a signal." Lex didn't move. "From where?" "Unknown vector. It's not using Alliance frequencies. It's not using any frequency." Cal's voice cracked, still seated at the ops station. "Then how are we receiving it?" Walter hesitated. "It's broadcasting in gravitational fluctuations. Raw curvature manipulation. The message is not encoded in bits or particles. It's embedded in space-time fabric." Lex stepped forward slowly, frowning. "Translate it." The lights dimmed. Walter responded in a voice no one recognized. Lower, slower, as if filtered through centuries of dust. "We see you now." A tremor passed through the Perseus breaker, not a physical one, but something deeper, an echo in the bones. Cal flinched, gripping his console. "It's not a weapon, but it feels like one." Lex turned toward the viewport, far beyond the defeated fleets. The stars began to distort, not bend, not shimmer, distort, as if something immense was shifting behind them, like a curtain being slowly drawn away from a theater stage. Walter pulsed again. "The anomaly is no longer observing. It's arriving." "Shape?" Lex asked. "No shape. It is outside the bounds of observational geometry." She narrowed her eyes. "Try." The main display fuzzed. Static twisted into spirals. At first, it looked like noise. Then a pattern. Then an absence of pattern. A void that suggested the edges of something unfathomable. Vast. Dormant. Curious. Rick Holden's voice came through the comms, uncharacteristically somber. "I don't like that thing, Lex." She didn't answer. Another signal. This one clear, though not comforting. "Evaluation. Initiated." Cal stood now. "Who's evaluating who?" Lex finally looked at him. "Us." He paled. "We just took down the strongest force in known space. What else could possibly evaluate us?" Her voice was quiet. "Whatever built the damn test." The alien fleets, stunned into paralysis moments before, now scrambled to respond. Transmissions between flagships flew like sparks. Some tried to cloak. Others tried to retreat. A few foolishly charged weapons again, perhaps hoping to reclaim dignity through self-destruction. None succeeded. One by one, their ships were locked in place by invisible tethers. Not gravitational, not magnetic, just stilled, held in orbit like pawns frozen midboard. Karnax, aboard the Tyr Dominion's capital ship, pressed his claws into his throne. This is not human." "No," Idrin whispered from her own ship, breath trembling. "This is what comes after." Lex watched the anomaly grow. Her thoughts moved faster now. No time for theatrics. She accessed tactical subroutines, emergency protocols, fallback plans for scenarios Earth Command had only theorized under existential class threats. "Walter," she said, "wake the architects." Even Walter paused. "Admiral, are you sure?" "No, but do it anyway." Deep inside the Perseus breaker, sealed cryochambers hissed open. From them emerged 6 figures, humanoid in shape, but not entirely human. Their limbs were elongated, their skin streaked with circuit-like veins. These were the architects. Earth's final contingency. Humans augmented beyond biology. Thinkers bred not for war, but for response. They walked silently into the command deck. The lead architect, designated Seraphim 1, turned to Lex. "We have read the wave," they said, voices overlapping. "It is not hostile." "Could have fooled me," she muttered. "It is judgmental." Lex's fingers tightened into fists. "We passed our test." "You passed a test," Seraphim 1 corrected. "Not the final one." Another pulse hit the ship. This one hit memory. Crew members across the fleet gasped as old sensations, grief, rage, hope, flooded their minds. Not hallucinations. Data sampling. The anomaly was reading emotion as if it were language. It wanted to know what humanity felt. Then came the final signal. "Will you stand for more than dominance?" Lex exhaled slowly. Her thoughts raced. The war. The spectacle. The joke that humbled 10 empires. That wasn't dominance. That was defiance. A challenge made of style and spirit. "But what now?" "We have to answer," she said aloud. Cal turned to her. "How?" "Same way we won." She turned toward the display. With truth, she tapped the console. Broadcast to the anomaly. All channels. The crew tensed. Even the architects paused. Lex Vega stepped forward and spoke. "Earth is not perfect. We are reckless. We are arrogant. We're still trying to figure out how to live with ourselves. But we fight back. Not to conquer. Not to erase. But because when we stay silent, people die." She looked around the bridge. "We stood up today because we were tired of pretending we weren't watching. We fought with jokes because we're too damn broken to cry anymore. We made them laugh because if they don't laugh, they kill. So, yeah, maybe we don't deserve to be the apex." She looked up, directly at the blackening stars. "But we're not here to rule. We're here to warn." Silence. Then came the reply. "You see the shadows. You know the fire is not yours to hold." Lex swallowed. "No, but we can carry the torch." The stars brightened. Slightly. Walter whispered. "Radiation signatures declining. Spatial distortion stabilizing. Is it leaving?" Kel asked. "No," said Seraphim 1. "It's watching again. But now, from further away." One by one, alien ships were released. Free. Whole. Not a single hull breached. Not a single being harmed. Karnak slumped in his throne, defeated not by firepower, but philosophy. Elvaz transmitted a private message to the human fleet. "We misunderstood you." Lex answered back with a line. "No. You underestimated us." The anomaly, whatever it was, began to fade. Not like a retreat, more like a door closing. The final message it left rang in every mind. "If you survive what comes next, we will speak again." And then it was gone. Lex let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Time resumed. The countdown hit 40:00. "Exactly," Walter's voice, finally back to normal, chirped. "Well, that was fun." Lex smiled faintly. "Let's go home." Cal stepped beside her, his voice soft. "Do you think we passed?" She looked out at the stars. "We didn't pass. We earned a chance to try again." The crew sat in silence, absorbing the moment. No victory music played. No fireworks. Just the hum of systems returning to routine. And far in the distance, the galaxy recalculated what it thought it knew about humans, from joke to legend, from latecomer to harbinger. And somewhere unseen, untouched, undreamed, something smiled. Because the joke had landed. And it was good.